All right, let's dive into one of the most important concepts in modern software engineering, service level objectives, or SLOs. There's this constant tug of war between shipping new features and making sure nothing breaks. Today, we're going to break down the framework that the best teams use to not just manage that tension, but to actually win that battle and make smart, data-driven decisions.
So let's start with a really basic question. For years, so many of us in engineering have been stuck in this trap, right? We've been chasing this idea of 100% uptime. It sounds great. It sounds like what the business wants, but is it actually the right goal? Should that even be what we're aiming for?
And this right here, this is the fundamental tension every tech organization faces. On one hand, you've got feature velocity. You have to ship new things to stay competitive and win new customers. But on the other hand, you need perfect reliability to keep the customers you already have happy. If you lean too hard one way, the other side suffers. It's this constant, tricky balancing act.
So let's really dig into this idea of the 100% uptime trap. We need to explore why aiming for perfect reliability isn't just, basically impossible, but why it's actually a bad business decision. It's a concept that sounds amazing in the slide deck, but completely falls apart in the real world.
This really lays out why that 100% goal is just a myth. First off, your users literally can't experience it. Their own Wi-Fi, their cell service, there are a million things outside of your control that make 100% impossible from their perspective. Then there's the cost. Getting that next 9 of reliability is exponentially more expensive. And here's the real killer. What's the #1 cause of outages? Change. Deploying new code. So if you're chasing 100%, you're essentially freezing innovation.
So we really have to reframe how we think about this. Instead of being firefighters just reacting to problems, we need to be engineers making data-driven decisions. And this quote, man, it just nails it. A 100% target isn't an engineering goal, it's an operations nightmare. It creates a culture of fear, not a culture of smart, calculated reliability.
Okay, enough about the problem, let's talk about the solution. This is where we shift from a fuzzy goal like be more reliable to a concrete, measurable system that lets us make smart trade-offs.
So the very first step is you have to measure what actually matters. This is your service level indicator, or SLI. It's not a guess, it's a hard number, a direct measurement of your service's health. Usually it's a ratio of good events to total events. For an API, it could be the percentage of successful requests. For a streaming service, maybe it's the percentage of videos that start playing in under a second.
Okay, so once you have your measurement, your SLI, you need a target. And that's your service level objective, or SLO. Now, this isn't some number you just pull out of a hat. This is supposed to represent the threshold of user happiness. It's the point where your service is reliable enough for your users. And, this is the crucial part, it is always less than 100%.
And this brings us to what I think is the most powerful idea in this whole thing, the error budget. If your SLO is your goal for reliability, then the error budget is your explicit permission to be unreliable. It's a resource. It's your allowance for taking calculated risks, for trying new things, for innovating. It's your budget for imperfection.
And the math is just about as simple as it gets. It's 100% minus your SLO. Whatever is left over from your reliability target, boom, that's your error budget. If your SLO is 99.9%, your error budget is that final 0.1%.
And this is where it all clicks and becomes real. An error budget isn't just some vague percentage. It's a concrete number of failures that you are allowed to have. So if your SLO is 99.9% and you get 3 million requests, you have a budget of 3,000 errors you can spend. Now you have a tangible resource you can actually manage.
I know this can all sound a little abstract, so let's get practical. Let's walk through, step by step, how you would actually create your very first SLO. It's probably more straightforward than you think.
So for our example, let's imagine we're working on a simple mobile game. The architecture is pretty basic. You've got the app on the phone, it talks to an API, there's a storage system, and then there's this data pipeline that crunches numbers to create leaderboards. Each part does something different for the user.
So how do you even start? Well, you look at each piece and you ask a simple question. What does a user actually care about here? For the API, it's obvious. Is it available? Did my request work? But for that data pipeline that builds the leaderboards, availability isn't really the main thing. What a user cares about is freshness. Is the leaderboard up to date?
And look, you don't have to overthink this. It's really just a 4-step process. But I want to call out step 2 because it's the most important one. You have to measure your reality first. Don't just invent a target out of thin air. See how your system has been performing historically and use that as your starting point. And here's what that looks like in the real world. You look at your data and you see that your API has been available about 97.123% of the time. So a good starting SLO would be a nice round 97%. Now, this isn't about aiming low. It's about being realistic and data-driven. And look at the payoff. That gives you an error budget of almost 110,000 failed requests over 4 weeks. That is a ton of room to innovate and deploy changes.
Now, having the numbers is one thing. That's just the start. The real magic, the real power, happens when an SLO becomes more than just a metric. It has to become a social contract, an agreement between teams.
And this is the most critical part of that contract. This is where the rubber meets the road. What happens when the error budget runs out? The answer has to be clear, automatic, and non-negotiable. You stop. You freeze new releases. You halt risky changes. All hands on deck are focused on getting reliability back. It's not a punishment. It's a safety valve that protects your users.
But what if that doesn't happen? What happens if there's no real agreement? If a product manager can just override the freeze and push their feature anyway? Well, that's the moment of truth. Because if the policy has no teeth, your SLO is just another useless number on a dashboard that everybody learns to ignore.
And that's exactly why this can't just be a casual agreement. It needs to be a formal, written-down error budget policy. It's a document that all the key players, product, development, SREs, everyone, formally commits to. It becomes a shared pact.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. Let's look at how this whole system moves you beyond just reacting to fires and into making clear, strategic, data-informed decisions. I mean, this quote from the Google SRE book says it all. It really highlights just how fundamental this concept is. You could argue that SLOs are the entire point of site reliability engineering. They provide the direction and the mandate for the whole discipline.
And this decision matrix, this is the strategic payoff. This is what turns your SLO from a simple report card into a powerful decision-making engine. Just look at that top row. You're meeting your SLO, your team isn't overworked, and customers are happy. What does the data tell you to do? Take more risks, ship faster. And conversely, look at the bottom. You're missing your SLO and your team is drowning. The data is screaming at you to stop everything and fix the underlying problems. It replaces arguments and gut feelings with a clear action plan.
And really, that's the ultimate power of SLOs. They completely change the question you're trying to answer. You stop asking, how can we be 100% reliable? And you start asking a much smarter question. What is the right amount of reliability for our users and our business? It's a fundamental shift from chasing an impossible ideal to engineering a deliberate, intelligent balance. And that is a much smarter game to play.